Welcome back to the channel, Star Seekers. Hope you all had a wonderful Christmas and a happy new year, and it's once again time to take a look back at the worst games that I reviewed in 2021. Now, last year saw me returning to the office, and so I didn't manage to get through nearly as many games as I would have liked to, but I did manage to cover around 150 games on the channel, and while there were plenty of stars to sing the praises of, there were also quite a few stinkers. Now, this list is going to focus solely on the games that I covered with a review in one form or another, and so my asset flip warning videos are going to be left out. So let's get right on into it, and as always, hit that like button to support me, and subscribe to the channel to keep up to date with all my latest reviews and content. So we're going to be kicking things off with one that's not necessarily a bad game, but the performance issues that it had on the Switch rendered it nearly unplayable, and so just like Bounty Battle of the previous year, Hellpoint has to be one of the biggest disappointments of 2021. With a dark sci-fi theme and gameplay influenced by the Souls-like games, Hellpoint should have been an easy win, and it had a ton of great ideas going on, which gave it its own identity in what has come to be a somewhat saturated subgenre. However, constant frame rate issues, potato vision graphics, unresponsive controls and overly long load times really take the fun out of what could have been a great little Souls-like, so if you're interested in actually playing this one, I'd recommend it on any other platform other than the Nintendo Switch. Coming in at number 9 we have the infamous Calculator, and what was intended as a complete joke review actually ended up being one of my most watched videos of 2021 with nearly 30,000 views. Now, there's not much to say with this one other than it drummed up a lot of negative press due to it being a rudimentary scientific calculator and costing $10, but on the plus side this did end up being a great marketing strategy, with the game becoming somewhat of a meme with hundreds of posts, videos and even a rival game published called Battle Calculator, which attempts to one-up the OG title by implementing a bunch of different arithmetic-based game modes. If there's anything to take away from this one though, it's that you can get anything published on the Nintendo Switch, and the more ballsy you are with your pricing, the likelier it is that your game will get noticed. So Hentai vs Evil takes our number 8 spot today, and this one did even better than Calculator on the channel, which is not surprising considering the promise of anime titties are more likely to get the blood pumping over a bunch of 2s and 3s, at least that's true for most people. Let's not beat about the bush with this one though. The game itself was, pardon my French, a bag of dicks, and it basically saw you playing as scantily clad anime babes, shooting hordes of zombies in one of 3 Unity asset environments, and rescuing other anime babes, all in the name of tearing off their undergarments and getting an ogle at the bare naked fun bags. Rather surprisingly though, Hentai vs Evil actually got a physical release on both the PlayStation and Switch, courtesy of indie publisher Funbox Media, so if you're a physical collector, you can now place this sordid gem in your display cabinet next to your limited edition copy of Waifu Uncovered. At number 7 we have Boom Blaster, another game which could have been decent but ended up just being a little bit shit due to a poor control scheme, awful spawn points and inconsistent gameplay mechanics. Now, a lot of the things that I criticised in the game appear to be easy fixes. The spawn points could have been moved around, the energy meter which instantly drains and turns boss fights into an arduous slog could have been removed, and the button bindings which made no fucking sense at all could have just been switched about, but the developers still got a shitty on with me when I pointed out these things, so perhaps I was in the wrong, though I doubt it, and this still doesn't excuse the utter bollocks spouted in the game's eShop description. Contract Killers is the name of the game at number 6 today, and this is a top-down shooter which attempts to combine elements of Hotline Miami with those of Hong Kong Massacre, but unfortunately fails miserably to come even close to the quality of either of them. Horrendous enemy AI and poorly implemented combat mechanics are the key shit features with this one which make it such an unjoy to play, with the game's bullet time being next to useless, enemies shooting through walls at you, and the wide selection of weapons on offer being rendered practically meaningless thanks to one-hit kills and an overzealous aim assist. On top of this, being able to shoot enemies off screen meant there was almost no challenge to the game, even on the hardest difficulty, and in general it's just not a very good game, and I highly recommend you steer well clear of it. So now we're heading towards the real shitty end of the stick, and at number 5 we have perhaps one of the most controversial releases this year with Popeye. Developed and published by Sabek, Popeye aimed to recapture the magic of the 1982 arcade classic of the same name, and while it successfully implemented some of the core gameplay mechanics found in the original, it did so without any sort of heart or ambition and in the cheapest possible way, using Unity assets for its levels, which resulted in a lackluster remake which was criticised by almost everyone who played it. Aside from it being a bag of shite, the reason why it was so controversial is the way in which Sabek handled this criticism, lashing out at popular YouTuber John Riggs and even threatening to sue him for slander, which in my mind puts Sabek in the running for the Cunt of the Year award, though that's not something that I'm going to be doing on the channel for obvious reasons. So from one Sabek title to another, because somehow these guys just managed to have acquired licensing rights to every nostalgic property from the 80s and 90s and still completely fucked them up despite having perfect blueprints to work from. Now if you're not from the UK, you've probably never heard of Bullseye, but it was essentially a quiz game where the contestants had to throw darts to select a topic and then successfully answer questions to earn cash and prizes. The Switch game though takes this classic piece of UK TV history and shits all over it, with the darts elements being boring as shit and near impossible to aim a shot, and the quiz elements being somewhat passable. However, they completely left out an integral element of the game show, that being Bully's Star Prize, which admittedly was completely fucking pointless and left winners around the UK with a speedboat growing mould in the back garden, but it was synonymous with the game show, and without it you may as well just go and play any other arbitrary quiz game on the Switch. So it wouldn't be a top 10 shittiest games of the year list without PixArts making an appearance, and America Wild Hunting is one of the original shit-covered gems, which sees you gunning down a variety of iconic birds with an assortment of firearms, including an AK-47, pump-action shotguns and several pistols. Now the game itself uses the same template as two of Pixar's other games, those being Clay Skeet Shooting and Zombie Apocalypse, but try as I might, I've never actually been able to identify the assets for these games, so they could in fact have been developed by Chief Bellend himself, Benoit Verassi. Regardless of this though, just like any of the other games produced or developed by PixArts, America Wild Hunting is a festering turd of a game. It's about as enjoyable as teabagging a blender, and even the game's thumbnail is an insult. So the runners-up prize this year actually goes to two games from the same developer, those being Work Trip and Hike from the developer Morning Shift Studios. Attempting to tap into the walking simulator market, whose games usually rely on deep and thought-provoking narratives to get them by in a rather niche market, Hike and Work Trip more or less do away with the narrative altogether, with the former having you wander questionably through a wilderness, pitching up a tent and then exploring an abandoned facility for no apparent reason, and the latter transporting you into the mind of a fucking maniac who's gone mental with a copy and paste tool. Both games clock in at around 20 minutes worth of playtime though, which from a value to money perspective leaves a lot to be desired, and I guarantee you'll have more fun watching my reviews of the games rather than actually playing them yourselves. So before we get to the number one spot on our list, I just want to say a little thanks to everyone who has supported me over this past year, and indeed my first year on YouTube before this. It's been a challenging one with me no longer working from home and starting up Xbox Corner alongside Alex from Switch Corner, but I'm still having a blast making content, and I'm looking forward to what 2022 has to offer. With that said then, let's now get on to what takes top spot for my worst reviewed game of the year. So try as I might to find a worse contender, PixArts have been all over the Switch eShop this year like a bad dose of the clap, and so this year, first place goes to the Easy Flight Simulator, which is even less of a game than it is a flight simulator, and like many of the so-called games, was basically created from a mobile game template known as Real Flight Mobile. That didn't stop PixArts though, who have a knack for embellishing the products like sprinkling glitter on dog shit, and they once again spouted a load of shit in the eShop description, attempting to sell it as an accessible alternative to rival Microsoft Flight Sim, though in what kind of simulated world you can fly beneath the mountains or defy the laws of fucking physics and send a jumbo jet into space, I don't know. When all's said and done though, it's easily the worst game that I've played this year, if you can even call it one, and this kind of title is why Nintendo really need to get a grip of the shit in 2022, because as admirable as it is to provide indie devs with an opportunity to get the games published and out there for people to play, for every one good game you get 10 shitty games, and this list goes some way to proving that Nintendo's quality assurance team either need to pull the fingers out of their asses and actually vet the games being published on the eShop, or the floodgates need to be closed and locked up tight before we all drown in heaps of shovelware shite. And so that's about it for another year on the channel. So what did you think about this year's list of shitty games? Did you happen to buy and play any of them and then regret your life and everything in it? Let me know down in the comments section below. Hopefully though, this year will be a good one for the Nintendo Switch, with it coming up to its 5th year on the market, and I'll have plenty of gems to bring to you all, but I'm sure I'll have my fair share of bad ones to rant about too. With that said though, make sure to hit that like button if you enjoyed this video, subscribe to stay up to date with all my latest reviews and content, and until next time, take care of yourselves and game on.